Watch this.
The hesitancy over vaccines, relatively high in Idaho. We have one of the nation's lowest COVID vaccination rates. Amidst those concerns, Idaho doctors are pointing to what's happening in our hospitals as proof vaccines work. How do you overcome a communication barrier? Well, a new program helps law enforcement interact with the vulnerable, and they say it should be implemented across the state. The path to the Pacific was paved through Idaho following the Louisiana Purchase. The legendary Lewis and Clark led the way, but not without a lot of help from the Nez Perce tribe. For months, COVID vaccines have been readily available to anyone 12 years of age and older. Despite that, only 47% of Idahoans 12 and older have taken advantage of that availability. We have one of the lowest vaccination rates in the country at 47%. And yes, there's a certain contingent who will never choose to get a COVID vaccine, but there are also those who aren't necessarily anti-vax, just vaccine hesitant. Some say they're waiting for more information and the possible release of traditional vaccines that are not based on the mRNA technology. Would that kind of vaccine be enough to encourage more people to get a COVID shot that would get us closer to that herd immunity? Joe Paris asked that question, I should say, of Dr. Patrice Burgess, chair of Governor Brad Little's COVID-19 Vaccine Advisory Committee and executive medical director for St. Alphonsus Health System.
Idaho health leaders continue to encourage people to get a COVID vaccine as the more contagious Delta variant drives up cases and hospitalizations. In recent weeks, there has been some encouraging signs in the Idaho vaccine uptake, but still there are major challenges.
We are seeing a little bit of an uptick, certainly not as much as we would like. You know, we'd like to see a much higher percentage of our state vaccinated that's eligible.
Dr. Patrice Burgess is chair of Governor Brad Little's COVID-19 Vaccine Advisory Committee and the executive medical director for the St. Alphonsus Health System. She says one reason Idahoans aren't getting the vaccine is due to misinformation about the available vaccines. One comment specifically is that the vaccines are experimental.
These are very well researched vaccines with a very good safety profile, but I do think that's one of the big issues is people thinking that they're experimental when they're really not.
Some Idahoans are waiting for other vaccines to be released. There is hope that non-mRNA vaccines, like Pfizer's and Moderna's, will help bridge the gap to those that are vaccine hesitant.
The mRNA and the Johnson & Johnson vaccine technologies are new. And so that can be concerning to folks that, maybe have a little lack of trust in the system or something like that. Whereas the Novavax technology is built on a very familiar technology. So for some people, that could be something that would make them more comfortable getting vaccinated.
The Novavax COVID vaccine that Dr. Burgess referred to was positioned to be released sometime this fall or winter. The timeline of the release, though, is now uncertain as Novavax handles the collection of recent challenges with their process. And to be clear, experts say that the mRNA vaccines are safe and effective. Dr. Burgess explains how they operate differently than Novavax.
In the mRNA and the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, those vaccines teach our body to make that protein, whereas the Novavax just gives us the protein and we make the antibodies that way. So for some people that are worried about the other technology, it could be more comfortable because it's a more familiar technology that we've used in other vaccines.
Dr. Burgess says she understands the feelings of fear or people just being unsure about the new mRNA technology. However, she has this insight for people waiting to get vaccinated.
I absolutely would not wait because we are in a situation right now where these variants are developing. And right now, the one we're dealing with is Delta, but there are others out there that will continue to develop. So the more quickly we can get people vaccinated and immune, the better off we're going to be.
If you have concerns about the safety and effectiveness of the mRNA vaccines, Dr. Burgess says just look at our ICUs. There's a common thread among those suffering worse from COVID.
The effectiveness is really showing up right now because our hospitalizations for COVID, the people that are in the hospital or the ICU, 98 to 99% of them are unvaccinated. So if you ever wanted to see any proof that a vaccine works, that's your proof right there.
All right, Joe, so we're coming up on this deadline when it comes to these health systems. Middle of next month, I believe, when they're expected to be fully vaccinated or at least have a first shot of the vaccination. What about these other vaccines, this Novavax? Can they get an exemption if they want to wait for that one?
Yeah, so these are employees of St. Alphonsus, St. Luke's, and Primary Health Group. And I was referred to the health policy today that says if you do not get one of the available vaccines that are out right now, you can apply for a religious or medical exemption. Brian, it is a tough situation for employees of the medical system that say, I will get the vaccine, but I want to wait until the one I want comes out. And it's a totally understandable thing to say, but the health systems, again, have this guidance that if you do not get one of the vaccines, the 3 vaccines that are out there right now, Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson, you could risk your employment. Again, they're taking everything up on an individual basis. You can get an exemption. You just need to talk to your supervisor at your place of work. But again, we know that there are people that are waiting for the vaccine like Novavax. It could be coming out in the fall, be coming out the end of the year, could be early next year. It is wait and see.
But those are not medical or religious exemptions, just because you want to wait. So that doesn't seem like it falls under that. And if we don't wait, we're not heading in the right direction right now.
Yeah, Dr. Burgess told me that we are heading into some concerning territory. She says we're heading into a situation that could be as bad as we saw in December last year, which was a very bad part of the COVID pandemic for us here in Idaho, if not worse than that.
We're starting to see some of those numbers back that up as well. All right, thank you very much, Joe. No single 911 call is the same. Aside from reported crimes, car crashes, or fires, dispatchers, they get a considerable amount of calls regarding vulnerable people. Those who may not be a danger to others necessarily, but rather in a situation where they may be more of a danger to themselves. Ada County Sheriff's Office gets so many calls of this type, they decided they were going to take a different approach. And they've created an online registry for those vulnerable people. ARVP is a place where a person or their family can provide information to dispatchers in case those vulnerable people end up distressed or even missing. That way, when they are found, first responders, they're going to know exactly how to approach them. Katya Stepovic has the story.
Dispatch, this is Kendra. How can I help you?
Since 2019, there have been 469 calls into dispatch involving someone enrolled in ADA's Vulnerable Population Registry.
It will tell me where he likes to walk to, where he may wander and get lost at.
With the knowledge at hand, dispatchers are able to deal with some of the calls, while 91% of the reports are transferred to law enforcement.
Yep, they are on their way, okay? They're coming lights and sirens.
As the community is growing, we have a lot more people that are moving here with Alzheimer's, dementia, autism.
So the ARVP was created specifically for people with special needs of all ages, so that if they go missing or are in distress and there is a communication barrier between the individual and first responders, information like physical traits, what phrases they respond to, and what tones to communicate in are at their fingertips.
People who are limited with their verbal ability, they can't tell us what their name is, they can't tell us who their emergency contact is, they can't tell us where they live. They may not be able to understand us at all.
One Boise mother who wants to stay anonymous has 3 children with autism and witnessed the program's success firsthand.
I never thought that she would take off like that.
In a matter of seconds, she says her 14-year-old daughter jetted a mile away from home.
911, this is Courtney. What's the address of your emergency?
Got a young lady that's just having some trouble running down the middle of the street. I don't know where she came out from, but we're just riding along with her right here, right now.
And just ran so far, so fast. Because you're in a panic. The time goes in slow motion and just, you don't know. And the worst possible thoughts are going through your head of what could happen.
She says her daughter does not comprehend the idea of danger.
Does she seem that she's verbal or nonverbal?
She's nonverbal.
Oh, I was just so scared because anything could happen. There's a canal down the road. There's traffic. Who knows? And she could be anywhere. There's water, especially water. It's drowning risk is really high with kids with autism. You definitely can't say like, oh, go home, or where do you live, or what's your name. She's just gonna ignore you completely, like you're not even there.
But because she enrolled her kids in the ARVP program, within 5 minutes, she received a phone call.
They knew who she was right away and how to approach her and how to keep her safe, and definitely how to get a hold of me. I have lots of other precautions already, alarms, a couple different alarm systems and door locks, but you just never know. It can happen in a second.
And that's exactly why a registry for the vulnerable population was created.
I have twin boys with autism, and this program would have been essential for them when they were younger. So the need is there. There's so many people who elope or wander and are unable to communicate with officers. So it's a need on both sides. It's a need for our responders, and it's a need for the community.
Now in Idaho, Ada County and Blaine County are the only locations with a registry like this in place, but many think it should be more widespread simply because it's been very successful so far. The registry is completely voluntary. Family members or individuals themselves can sign someone up, and you can also sign yourself up. Now the information online how to sign up is on ktbb.com. Brian.
And with a county as big as Ada and with only about 100 people signed up, you would think that they would have a few more signed up. Maybe this knowledge getting out there might help a few more people become part of this program. All right, thanks, Katya. Dude, where's my boat? Several aquatic aficionados are asking that very question as water levels drop quickly in Idaho reservoirs. And celebrations are in order for a man with his name plastered across Idaho. But the journey of Lewis and Clark might not be as well known without the Nez Perce. All right, we kind of left a lot of you hanging yesterday. No time to share your comments at the end of the show. So we're going to make sure that doesn't happen today. So send us your thoughts and comments and complaints about the 208 today. The number is 208-321-5614. Just be sure to include your name and the hashtag, the 208. You ever walk out to your car, like in the driveway or in the parking lot, and your car is not exactly in the same place you left it? Brings to mind the 2000 stoner classic, Dude, Where's My Car? Starring the selective showering actor Ashton Kutcher. Only this, hey, that's not where I left it moment doesn't involve a car, but a boat. And this year, there's probably a few more learning this the hard way. Boats, well, because of the water levels dropping in our reservoirs, are being left literally high and dry. There's this one from Cascade, Lake Cascade, where the pontoon was left tied to the pier in the water at the time, but not anymore. Not that they weren't warned. Uneven ramp surface, sudden drop off at the launch, which basically explains the reservoir situation across southern Idaho. Water levels have suddenly dropped off. There's this one at Lucky Peak in a much more dire strait in that it isn't in a strait anymore at all. I mean, as a boat owner, you spend a lot of time trying to avoid bottoming out on a rocky shore, don't you? And I'm guessing they did for a while. Okay, so now what? What do? Do they just have to wait until next spring to float it free from the rocks? I just found out who owns that boat. We're going to try to talk to him, but apparently, yeah, that's what's going to happen. And here's another look at that same boat from a few days earlier. You can see it's a little closer to the water there, but the boat, yeah, kind of has now moved a little bit further from the water because the water levels keep dropping. And how did we get to this point? Well, back in July, the Army Corps of Engineers announced they were going to start drawing down Lucky Peak because of the drought. A little bit further, a little bit faster than they do in normal years. Water in Lucky Peak and other reservoirs are being rerouted to help meet irrigation needs across the state, try to extend that as far as they can. Now, prior to that drawdown, The Corps of Engineers also sent a warning that those water levels could reach winter levels as early as mid-August, which is right now. So what does that look like? Well, Lucky Peak holds 306,000 acre-feet of water when it is full. That is like 306,000 football fields covered with a foot of water, if you can picture that. Now, usually this time of year, Lucky Peak is filled with about 220,000 acre-feet. Last week, it was holding about 165,000. Today, it is 125,000 acre-feet. So just in a week's time, we've lost 40,000 acre-feet in volume in Lucky Peak, which is almost 130,000 acre-feet in 3 weeks. This year, Lucky Peak is about a month ahead of schedule when it comes to those low water levels. As we said, near winter, yeah, when we're still kind of in midsummer.
Well, we aren't getting any rain, but we certainly are getting some cooler air, and it feels good out there today, doesn't it? And it's improved our air a little bit. Temperature is 75 right now in Boise. Haven't been this cool during the day since back in May. And up to 81 in Ontario, but mainly in the mid-70s in the Treasure Valley and only the low 70s in Magic Valley and 60s up in the mountains. Most areas are about 15 degrees below average today. And we have a low pressure system tracking through central Idaho, scattering a few scattered thunder showers and rain showers over the west central and central mountain areas, but no precipitation reaching us in the valley down here, so we can expect to stay dry. As far as smoke is concerned, it got pushed off to the east with those breezy northwest winds, and our air quality has improved a little bit, mainly in the moderate range across the entire area right now, and most of the thicker smoke has been pushed farther to the west and east of us around that low pressure area. Let's take a look at the 7-day forecast. I'll show you what's coming. Tomorrow, a few showers may pop up in the afternoon, especially in the mountains in the vicinity of this low pressure as it pushes through. We'll warm up slightly to the upper 70s, and then another chance of showers on Saturday, but we'll fluctuate in the upper 70s to low 80s into the weekend, and then start warming back to near normal by the end of next week, back up around 90 degrees.
You can find a bed and breakfast in Idaho in places you probably wouldn't think there would be one. How about this one? A B&B before it was a thing. We're going way back to an old campsite in Hells Canyon where the Lewis and Clark expedition met the 5-star hosts of the Nez Perce tribe. All right, let's make this quick. Comments, questions, concerns? Type them up and text them to us to this number, 208-321-5614. And don't forget your name and hashtag the 208. And if you hurry, you might see yours at the end of the show. Nearly 216 years ago, the Lewis and Clark expedition made its first steps into what's now known as Idaho. Exact date they hit Lemhi Pass, August 12th, 1805, just a few days ago. But 6 days later, on this date, August 18th, the Pathfinders of the Louisiana Purchase celebrated the 31st birthday of their leader, Meriwether Lewis. His name is commemorated across all corners of the Gem State, but the expedition didn't make it to the Pacific Coast all on its own. So in honor of old man Meriwether's 247th birthday, 247, yeah, that's right, okay. We'll dial things back to 2008, when archaeologists found an old Nez Perce village that may have served as the first ever bed and breakfast in Hell's Canyon.
Even deeper than the Grand Canyon, Hell's Canyon, a harsh place of sheer rock walls.
As you go to the south, it gets narrower and narrower and steeper.
But the canyon is also a bountiful place. The Nez Perce lived here, thrived here for centuries.
We're living within an area that provides you your life. From the water and the fish on up to the top of the ridges, all your food is on the hills.
The Nez Perce had everything they needed, and the Lewis and Clark expedition needed what the Nez Perce had: salmon. On their way back home in May of 1806, the Lewis and Clark expedition camped near Kamei, waiting for the snow to melt in the Bitterroot Mountains. Meriwether Lewis sent Sergeant John Ordway and 2 other men to the Snake River on this route to trade for salmon with the Nez Perce, food needed for their mountain crossing. Ordway wrote about the side trip in his journals.
We passed a large lodge and descended the worst hills we ever saw a road made down.
And their arrival in the village.
At length they invited us in, spread robes for us to sit on, and set a roasted salmon before us and some of their white bread, which they call upa. This lodge is about 100 feet long and 20 feet wide and all in one. And this is the depression of the lodge right in front of us. This is the slope where they probably were waiting while the fish was being prepared.
State archaeologist Dr. Ken Reed with the Idaho State Historical Society headed the project to investigate this site at Cougar Rapids Bar. Using high-tech instruments to look below the surface, Dr. Reed's team mapped the rim of this multi-family home and the hearths, or fireplaces, running down the middle.
This was a hearth here. This is not one here, but this is here.
The lodge, or longhouse, would have looked something like this. Dr. Reed and his team dug small test pits in the hearth and the raised mound on one side of the house and found artifacts whose carbon dates put them in the early 1800s. They found this half of a blue glass bead, 2 brass tacks, and a tiny arrowhead. This evidence, combined with Ordway's journal descriptions of the village,
the rapid that he described is right down there by the Cochrane Islands,
plus other research on the possible routes to the Snake River, make Dr. Reed very confident this is where Ordway and his men stayed 2 nights trading for salmon. And this is crucial. Dr. Reed says they know of Lewis and Clark campsites in Idaho, but nothing remains of them, no physical traces. This is the only place that has a structure associated with it, a footprint left behind.
We did not have until this project any actual sites that we could pinpoint to specific days and specific people of the Lewis and Clark expedition. It's a double pleasure to find an archaeological site that is still pretty much intact in a setting that's intact.
Hell's Canyon, a harsh place, a bountiful place for the Nez Perce hundreds of years ago and for modern-day archaeologists.
Well, here's an interesting note. Most of the 17 salmon the party got in that trade, they spoiled before they got back to the main camp. And while that meeting was fruitful for the expedition, it opened the door to other white settlers who unfortunately didn't hold the Nez Perce in such high regard. Tensions rose, and about 70 years later, their tribe was forced off its homeland in the Wallowa Valley onto the current Nez Perce Reservation near Lewiston. But throughout the past several years, the United Methodist Church, which owned the land, has given parts of it back to the Nez Perce in small chunks, like acre here and there. And earlier this month, the Oregonian reported that tribal leaders returned to their homeland for a blessing ceremony. One tribal member telling the paper, "It was to let our ancestors know that we're coming home." All right, today we're asking, dude, where's my car? Where's my boat? Yesterday, people like Patty were asking, where are my comments? We ran out of time yesterday, but today we're going to give you some of those comments, like this one from Steve, referring to the Vulnerable People program that the Ada County Dispatch has started. In a state with 900 million revenue supplies, it would seem that many more counties could easily afford a similar at-risk program like Ada and Blaine counties have. But this is Idaho, where politicians say we can't afford such mental health-based programs, says Steve. And yeah, it doesn't seem like it would cost that much to start an online database. As we leave a war we refuse to win, we fight a war here in Idaho of ignorance and selfishness. People who refuse to get a vaccine are willfully choosing to endanger my family in the name of their freedom. I and my grandson and granddaughters do not appreciate your carelessness. Disappointed in my fellow Idahoans, says Bud. A lot of people pushing others to get a COVID vaccine. See if we can get past this. We'll see you tomorrow.